This video is specifically for deed fraud victims and is intended to serve as a guide when working with law enforcement. It will cover why you should file a police report, your law enforcement choices, and I'll describe the process and what you should be prepared for. Then we'll talk about possible roadblocks you might face and what you should do. This series is solely focused on victims that had absolutely nothing to do with the change of ownership on their properties. If you did not pay your mortgage, taxes, HOA, or sign your deed without understanding the implications, this series will have limited value for you. My name is Debbie Gottlieb. I've been a real estate agent or broker since 1994. I was a victim of deed fraud when a criminal pretending to be my dad sold my deceased father's small Scottsdale home to Zillow in 2019 using real estate agents and Fidelity National Title and Escrow. Since then, I've worked with law enforcement, state and local leaders, and attorneys across the United States and have a passion to help victims and stop this crime. Thus created Title Crime LLC. Title Crime does not employ attorneys or detectives. So Title Crime LLC is not giving you legal advice, and this is for educational purposes only. The first thing I want to have you understand is the exact role of law enforcement. Law enforcement's job is to find the criminal and make a case with enough evidence to turn over to the district attorney. The district attorney's job is to go to court and have a judge sentence the criminal. Their job is not to get your property back. There are two distinct avenues that you must take as a victim. Number one, file a police report so that they may find the criminal and charge him with the crime. This is what the police will do. But equally important is an attorney to take legal action to get the property back in your name. These two groups do not overlap, and they in no way come close to doing each other's job. You need to do both. Unlike the attorney you will hire to work on your specific case, law enforcement is government funded and does not work for you specifically. Their charter is to protect the public from criminals breaking the law. With deed fraud, the detective will be a white-collar crime detective. These detectives have worked their way up through law enforcement and possess very specialized training and skills. They're handling a variety of criminal cases, typically involving money and property. They're tasked with building a solid case, utilizing a variety of methods, including technology, with the end goal of providing the district attorney solid evidence to prosecute the criminal for the county, state, or United States, depending on the agency. This process can take years, and if your criminal lives outside the country, may never be solved. As a citizen, our goal in reporting any crime is to make the criminal pay for their crime with a lengthy prison sentence, and to stop the criminal from hurting others. At sentencing, the criminal may also be ordered to pay you for unrecoverable out-of-pocket expenses called restitution caused by the crime. My criminal is in prison and I am getting restitution. The only way to get an investigation started, press charges, have your criminal get arrested, sentenced, and potentially pay you restitution is to start with a police report. Another reason you may need a police report is if you decide that you will attempt to take back possession. I will talk about this later in a later video. However, taking back possession may mean putting the utilities back in your name. When I tried to put water and sewer and garbage back in my name, the city of Scottsdale had to get their attorneys involved for approval. And one requirement was a copy of the police report, which I did not have, nor did I know it was my victim's right. So I did get a police report sent to the utility attorney, and they ruled in my favor. You may have a small $5,000 fraud claim inside your homeowner's insurance policy. And if there are any damages to the property from the crime, your homeowner's insurance could cover you. Your insurance company will want to see a police report. I'll talk about homeowner's insurance in another video. And if you purchased your home after 2014, you may have post-possession fraud coverage within your title insurance policy. There may be some fine print, but having a police report will probably be a requirement. I'll talk about title insurance in more depth in another video. Here's another reason to have a police report. I'll share a few more facts about my case. Terry was victim number one. Mark held his house in a corporation, and was victim number 3. A huge company that owns thousands of homes across the United States called Invitation Homes was victim number 2, and I was victim number 4. The criminal stole the identity of Terry and then stole his rental property and then drove down to San Diego and used Terry's ID and signed Terry's name as the corporate president on Mark's deed, notarized it, and recorded it. Nobody checks. The notary doesn't check, and the recorder doesn't check. Then the criminal started proceedings to evict Mark's tenant. Mark got an attorney and sued Terry, victim number 1. So now Terry was fighting to get his property back and was also being sued by victim number 3. Then because Invitation Homes had made no moves to put a lis pendens on their property, and I did get a hold of their legal department, Mark's attorneys put a lien on stolen property number 2 to foreclose and pay Mark's attorney fees. Do you see why it's important to have a police report? Finally, the criminal could begin the process to evict you or your tenant. Your attorney will need to go to court to grant you or your tenant a stay in the property until ownership has been resolved. A police report will help your case. So now that you know why you need a police report, you need to decide which agency to report the crime to. And as upsetting as this might be, and it might be an emergency to you, this is not an emergency to the police organization. An emergency is a traffic accident, a life in danger. This is white-collar crime, and no one will die, and the situation will not change dramatically with regards to catching the criminal if law enforcement doesn't come immediately. Now, what can change is your criminal could decide to sell, move, or into, lease, or mortgage your house. That is what an attorney will do, not the police. First, you need to determine the police agency that has jurisdiction over your property and will most likely work on your case. Next, you need to file a police report with your selected law enforcement agency. Submit any documentation the responding officer asks you to provide, get a detective assigned, and make a statement. There are no shortcuts. Now, every city and county within the United States treats white-collar crimes differently. And there are a few different police organizations you can call. You might decide to call one of them, or you can call all of them if it makes sense, but only one is going to investigate. And if you have several properties stolen, I would recommend you select one law enforcement agency. I know a victim that reported each stolen property to each city. It's better to have one detective and not 9 different detectives, because it's just one criminal or group of criminals. Now, you might have trouble with law enforcement, which I will address shortly, but here's a list of choices, and there is no right or wrong answer. I would go with the first agency that responds. First is the FBI. While money may have changed hands over state lines and you think the FBI should investigate, don't be surprised with their disinterest. The reason to notify the FBI is because they do keep a national database and may add your case, demonstrating that this is a problem that needs attention. But they will most likely not follow up and probably not investigate. I did call them and they asked me questions, but I never heard back from them. Although rare, I did find an article where the FBI prosecuted a deed fraud criminal, took him to court, and the criminal was sentenced to 11.5 years in prison. If the FBI is needed, the detective from another agency will engage them. However, you can also file a report online by visiting www.ic3.gov. Each state has an attorney general, and there are detectives on staff. Typically, the attorney general's office will determine which cases they will take. Their focus is on cases with multiple properties or multiple states involved. Well, how do you know if your criminal stole more than your property or if other states are involved? You won't know, at least at this point. So fill out the criminal form report and send it in. The Arizona AG's has a well-known, dedicated, very intelligent, and awesome investigator for deed fraud. Third, your local police department could be your best choice. The first thing that will happen when you call the police is you'll meet an officer at the property, and he'll take a report. Your first goal is to get assigned to a detective. That was a problem for me. And I recently spoke to a victim in Texas that reported her crime to the police, and they felt this crime was a civil matter. It's a felony to steal property. And I'll address what you need to do if you run into problems in this section of the video. Fourth, the local police department may not have jurisdiction over your property, but the sheriff might. Many retirement areas in the Phoenix metro area are serviced by the county sheriff and not the local police department. Also, if you live in a county island, you'll want to go to the sheriff. Fifth, if you live in Arizona, the Arizona Department of Real Estate will take deed fraud calls as the first line in an investigation. And if it makes sense, we'll forward your case to the appropriate law enforcement agency. I'm not aware of any other real estate department in the country that has a deed fraud initiative, and I will include their contact information. Number 6, in Riverside County, California, the police department refers deed fraud cases to the district attorney, and you may find that's true for you, and they will want a form filled out. So if your local police department refers you to another organization, keep going and fill out the documentation. If you live in Cook County, Illinois, or Wayne County, Michigan, you will be working with a team of attorneys and law enforcement that may investigate the crime and file a document in court to help you get your title back. For Wayne County, please call the Deed Fraud Hotline, 313-224-5869. For Cook County, please email clerk.recordsfraud@cookcountyil.gov. I've talked to both units in the past. Keep in mind that while they're doing their investigation, the criminal has your title and can mortgage, sell the property, causing further and possibly unrecoverable damage. So it might be in your best interest to at least consult with an attorney to file a lis pendens. For more information on what a lis pendens is, please watch my video on attorney. The next segment are issues you could face when reporting a crime and getting a detective assigned. I know websites, printing out forms, filling out forms online can be daunting. Full confession, I filled out the forms online at the Arizona Attorney General's office. I filled out the consumer form and got a response that they don't prosecute these types of crime. They don't find the right department or forms for you. They just rejected my form. Now, I'm not the only deed fraud victim that filled out the wrong form. So find the right form and fill it out. I need to stress to you that this step is so important that if filling out the form is too difficult, please call the law enforcement agency and ask for help. Don't be embarrassed. This process is daunting. Everyone thinks online is easy, and you and I both know it's not always that easy, especially when you're in terrible distress or you don't own a computer or have the internet access. I looked at the statistics the FBI puts out, and I can tell you that senior citizens are a big target for this crime. And your criminal is counting on you not being able to fill out that form. So call, get a voice, and get help. Issue number 2 is the police reject your case. When the police officer came to my dad's house to take the report, I had a copy of the deed with the fake signature dated 18 months after my dad's death. The officer asked for documentation and told me a detective would call me. He had all the documentation within hours. When I didn't get that call, I emailed the police officer, and he responded that I lost the house in a foreclosure and to have a happy holiday. My next step was to write to every Scottsdale City Council member and mayor for help. One of the council members sent my email to the chief of police, and I had a detective assigned by the following Monday. If that happens to you, take the same steps I took, and if that doesn't work, contact the Attorney General's office and your state senator and House of Representatives. Do not stop and walk away from your house. Issue number 3, police dismiss moving forward because they think deed fraud is a civil matter. Now, because this is a private property, law enforcement might make the mistake of telling you this is a civil matter. It is a civil matter if it's a divorce and you're fighting over your property. But I assure you, it is a criminal matter. Your criminal has committed several felonies. Do not back off until you have a detective. If you're in that situation, you need to reach out to the mayor, city council, attorney general for your state. your state senator, and legislators. I had a fight, and you may have to too, but don't back down. I can assure you that if the police officer had his house stolen, it would be a criminal case. Now you have a detective assigned. Now what? They usually don't work weekends and can be on a 4-day work schedule. You should get a call within a couple of days. He'll ask you for a statement. Here are things you need to include in your statement. Number 1, how did you find out your property was stolen? Number 2, do you have a copy of the fraudulent deed? Provide the copy to the police. Number 3, how long ago did the theft happen? 4, do you have any idea who might be involved? 5, how many times has your property been sold since discovered? 6, is someone living in your property now? 7, is your property in the same condition as it was when you owned it? 8, were the utilities transferred out of your name? And when? 9, are the tax payments up to date? If not, when was the last time you paid taxes? 10, are the mortgage payments up to date? 11, are the HOA payments up to date? 12, were the locks changed? 13, if it's tenant occupied, have your tenants received any communication? If so, provide the communication to the detective. Finally, you should ask for a copy of the police report every few weeks and should contact the detective for an update on your case every 2 weeks. I can't emphasize to you enough that your only friends in this process are the detective assigned to your case, your attorney, and the district attorney, if your criminal case is strong enough for an arrest and then court. Your detective has a huge workload, and your kindness and professionalism, providing anything he wants or needs from you immediately and taking his calls when he calls you, is your job. Typically, their calls will show up on your phone as private. The detective is juggling a lot of cases. Has to be your number one priority. They need to communicate with you. So answer your phone, take notes, and give them what they need so they can keep your case moving forward. Expectations. These investigations can take years. You just need to make sure that the statute of limitations doesn't run out. But your detective is looking under rocks for clues, and everything takes court orders to get information. My detective knew who the criminal was pretty quickly, but he had to build a case for the district attorney. That took at least a year. It's not unusual for these cases to cross state lines. My case was sent to Orange County for a year. So after waiting a full year, the case came back to Arizona. My television detective experience shows detectives flying to other states to interview criminals. It doesn't happen in the real world. I have worked pretty hard to try to communicate information I think will help my fellow deed fraud victims. If you're a victim and have experienced something else, please comment and share your experience. And if you're a member of law enforcement and would like to give other tips, I welcome that. Please like and follow.